Wakey, wakey, smell those eggs and bakey. It's time for Breakfast Talk, a podcast discussing current, independent, and mainstream entertainment topics from gaming and movies to comics. Start your week off right with the Breakfast Boys. As always, if you can smell what we're cooking, click that like button, and if your tummies are rumbling for more, click subscribe and ring that brekkie bell to turn on all notifications. All right, let's talk.
There you go.
I was anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ed, on the feedback.
Yeah.
It's normally Greg's. That's why I was like, Greg, mute yourself.
Normally me. Anyway. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I came on with sort of the aim of having a chat about combining individual stories, and I just thought that'd be a fun thing for you guys, because there are a lot of these I go on and I plug my book and I talk about how much I love it, and I kind of almost feel like I can take that as read with you guys and your audience. It's here. Hopefully you guys will be willing to drop a link to it. Assuming you've been able to find it. Cascade Part 1 on Kickstarter. But yeah, I mean, I think that we had a really interesting discussion last time. I'd love to kind of have a discussion about something a little more, I guess, writery, complicated. It's sort of like the whole, how do you make this group of people, each of whom could carry their own book, or in the case of Avengers, their own movie. How do you make that group of people each have their own identity? How do you make the group work together and make sense? Because you're talking, certainly in the case of superheroes, you're talking about egos, quite a lot of ego. Again, taking Avengers as an example, you've got Iron Man and Captain America, and then you've got, and they clearly, they have this ego thing going on of their own, their way's the right way. And then you've got Thor, who just comes in and smashes through everything, and his ego is just sort of the size of the universe. And then you've got Bruce, who's there just trying to do the right thing. You've got Hawkeye, who's barely there, but when he is, he's kind of like, okay, well, now I'm pissed off, and I want to get Loki back. You've got Black Widow, who's there because she's been ordered to be there, basically, and that's about it. That's her only reason. And you've got Bruce there trying to sort of do the right thing and not have to suit up. That's his ultimate goal. His ultimate goal is be here, be among S.H.I.E.L.D., not have to suit up. And I think the key to that working, and the reason that worked, and in my opinion, I'm going to be very specific here. I think the cinematic cut of the Justice League did not work. I think the Snyder cut worked a lot better. Then again, he did have double the length of time to tell the same story, so that really does help a lot, to be honest. It's an advantage, right?
Yeah.
But I think where you see the significant difference between the two movies is the moment of conflict between every member of the team. And you can very easily find stuff online for Avengers for how nervous Joss Whedon was about that scene when they're all in there and Cap walks in and dumps the gun on the table about Phase 2, and Bruce ends up holding the spear. And then it's interrupted. They don't even manage to get to the end of the conversation, because that's when Hawkeye attacks the helicarrier, and they're all, they have no choice. But it actually comes all the way back to what I learned as a project manager, which is this thing about forming, storming, norming, and performing. When you first get a group together, everyone's kind of nice. They're kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll listen to what you have to say, and I'm not really sure what my place is within this group. I don't know if I'm supposed to be supporting this guy as the leader, or if I'm, I don't really know. But okay, I'll just kind of forming, storming, norming, and performing. But yeah.
Dylan, get it right.
People, when you're forming, you have this kind of uncertainty around what you're doing, and you'll get a little bit of, oh, how about no, don't worry, this person's got it. And I actually even use almost that exact line in Cascade, because when Violet turns up, Penumbra's already been working on this for a while, and Violet's about to suggest something. Penumbra's already 3/4 of the way to what she's gonna say they do, and then you kind of move on to, okay, well, everyone has an opinion, right? And especially if that first plan goes wrong, which is a very, very common thing that happens. In the Avengers movie, it happens. Loki is there; he wanted to be captured. Everyone knows that wasn't a legit capture. That plan didn't go right. It just, he wanted to be captured, and he let himself get captured. So, you have this thing where everyone has their own opinion, and that's that scene that I'm talking about. We've got people saying, you're doing completely the wrong thing. We should do X, Y, Z. By the way, bringing in this sort of side thing of, this prison wasn't made for me. Not made for me, made for something a lot stronger. It's kind of like, okay, well, yeah, that's yeah. And you kind of bring in all these different opinions, these different stressors that effectively cause an explosion of some sort. In the Avengers case, quite literally. And in Cascade, what I did is I went to a similar place. The plan just goes horribly wrong. They're doing their thing, and it fails. You're fighting a giant, powerful supervillain. That happens, right? But the problem is that the person whose plan was not the one you went with goes, right, but my plan would have worked. Why didn't we do my plan? You end up with this storming where everyone's saying, oh, but my idea's right. My idea's right. Why aren't we doing this? Why did we do this other idea that then didn't work? And that lets you sort of frame this team as they try to figure out what right looks like and what the dynamic should look like.
So they're finding their role in the puzzle. They're trying to put themselves in the wrong spot.
Exactly.
Might see themselves as the leader, or
like Iron Man might see himself as the leader in in fact, I don't think he does see himself as the leader at the beginning of the Avengers, but by the end, certainly by Age of Ultron, I think you could argue that maybe he is. I know he makes the comment, I just pay for everything, but it does feel like, in that assault on Baron Zucker's base at the beginning of Age of Ultron, it feels like Tony is leading the charge there. Like he's telling them what to do or whatever. And I think finding each person finding their place within the group, and yet still having their independence that means they could go off and have another of their own adventures, is actually really important. And I'll let Hex say hi.
Well, I was going to say something that's interesting about all of that is that have you ever heard of the anime 7 Deadly Sins?
Yeah.
Something interesting I've always noticed is that a lot of the great stories, including all the way back to the Odyssey, all the way up to the Avengers, right? They all have this thing where if there's many characters that are the main character, very often they find their roles by separating the ideal perfect person, right? So you rage and power is good when it's ordered by leadership and calmness, right? And so basically what happens is that's what I meant about the puzzle piece. The puzzles to form this perfect fighter, but if you put the rage as leader, it doesn't work. If you put the leader as a follower, it doesn't work. And you need to have each person in their role. I think that honestly, when you look at all of the Avengers, and it was always like this. Captain America was the leader, and Tony Stark is one of those ones that's to be idolized. It's look at that, he's just a man, and he's doing all of this. So he's someone that helps motivate the team, and he doesn't have to be the leader. And I think that was part of the problem, right? That he thought that he should lead it, when in all reality, he later discovers that his own judgment is flawed, and that having Cap as the main person to make the decision helps resolve a lot of that stress and anxiety that makes him not the best person in his own team. And like it's like
he's an ideas man, not a leader. And there is actually a difference between these two things.
Well, that's the thing. I like thinking about this, like when it comes to making a rule, like whether it's in your business and laws, whatever it is. Like when you try to make a rule, you don't have the expert of that one item make the rule. You need someone to evaluate, right? Like you don't like.
You have government. You have you have committees, or you have whatever, and they aren't made up of the experts. The experts come and tell the committees their opinion, their evidence, and all the rest of it. And then someone who's more neutral, who isn't as you say, isn't expert in that area, goes, okay, well, given all of this, I think that this is the direction we ought to go. And that doesn't always mean that you necessarily get the right answer, obviously.
Yeah.
But it often an expert can be blinded by their own expertise.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and that's the whole point, and that's why the leader doesn't need to be the strongest, fastest, smartest. They need to be the best evaluator of ideas and people, essentially. That's it. And that's why Captain America is. That's why they chose them for the project to begin with, right? Like, yeah. So I think that's one of the problems with the Justice League movie is too many of them have the same style, like opinions or feelings or emotions, and none of them like fall into a good role. Like at the end, it's just all of them are brawlers, including Batman, which doesn't.
Yeah, because Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all seem to have the same approach to everything.
Yeah, like let's beat people up, right? Like
and the Flash obviously doesn't, but he is so far removed that it actually feels jarring.
Yeah, he feels out of place almost, and it's funny because like on his own, I think he was actually a really good Flash, but in this world, it just didn't feel right. And like so, yeah. Like I watched the what is it? The cut the
Snyder Cut.
Snyder Cut. Thank you, Preston. The Snyder Cut, and like that fills in a lot more blanks, and it's a way better movie laid out that way. But it's still like that particular character does still seem out of place. Like he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean the Flash always seems a bit out of place in that movie, even more so than Cyborg, because Cyborg starts by feeling out of place, but he eventually finds a place. Just because he can do things that no one else can do.
If anything, Cyborg is like the one person that found his place, and it was unique, where everyone else seemed like they could replace each other in different ways. Like that's
they were a little bit interchangeable.
Yeah, because even like I said, even Batman, like it's the jacked version, like the Dark Knight version of Batman.
Yeah.
Where he's ripped, he's got a bigger suit, he's got big guns. Like he's just.
He also has no issue using guns, which
that's what I mean. Like
is a minor issue for me. Like they just seem to have thrown everything we know about Batman out the window without explaining it.
That's the biggest. Yeah, I was about to say without explaining it, because there is a version of Batman where that happens, and it's because Robin gets killed and he snaps and he starts using guns. Like
and the Flashpoint version of Batman where it's Thomas Wayne, and yes, there are absolutely reasons that he could, but that's not who this Batman appears to be. He is certainly not snapped.
Yeah, that was my point. Is like there's no origin. Like, ironically, because we've seen enough Batman and we've seen so many origin stories, and all of them say, I've got one rule, right? Like, the idea is, like, you can't break your one rule if you're not going to tell me why you're breaking it. And the only scene that shows it is a 3-second clip where he walked past the suit that only loyal comic book fans would understand. So, like, it's one of those things where, like I get it, but, like, most of the audience is like, oh, my God, Batman's just killing people now. Like,
and in the Snyder Cut, he just grabs their turrets and starts shooting down parademons, and you're like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever.
I think it has a lot to do with Snyder being at the helm, even to start, like, being involved at all, even as a producer or whatever. Like, it's because he has so much of his own, like you were saying, like you kind of don't call in the experts to make the decisions usually, like they're consulting, right? So he has so much built up, like comic knowledge, and then his own knowledge, like this is the universe I've created and things like that. It's kind of like he assumes that the audience kind of already has that too, and like they don't need that, like and like you said, there's been so many versions of Batman. It's kind of like it kind of works to his advantage too, to kind of subvert everybody's expectations and be like, well, we're not, that's not the comfortable Batman that you're going to see in this movie. You know what I mean? You're going to see the Batman that you're not comfortable with, that you do have a problem with, that you can poke holes in and things like that. So it kind of flies off of the typical trajectory.
I think there are right ways of doing it, and I think there are wrong ways of doing it, though. And I think he might have crossed the line, in my opinion, to not the right way of doing it. I got to a point in the Snyder, and I didn't even think this when I watched the cinematic cut, although it's true. But I got to a point in the Snyder cut where he's just gunning down parademons with their own weapons. And I'm like, wait, hang on a minute. Batman's using guns here, and what? Wait, no, hang on. Like, he doesn't actually, well, that doesn't exist in the cinematic cut, that bit.
Have you like, if you had seen maybe like Batman vs Superman, he does kind of preface that. Like,
yeah, I know.
Because like,
it made me then reflect back on, you know what, actually, yeah, he just loads bullets of kryptonite and just kind of shoots the shit out of Superman.
My biggest one was during Batman versus Superman when he's ripping a turn in the Batmobile tank, and he just runs over like 4 people. And I'm like, wait, did Batman just, like, because that's like the first real scene where you're certain that happened, and I'm like, did he just kill 4 people? Oh, holy crap! Like, that's pretty quick.
Just collateral damage.
Yeah, things got out of hand fast.
But I mean, we're talking about not having origin stories, but then you sort of leap into something that isn't quite the same character. And I suppose there's a question of, okay, so we don't need to see his parents die again. We've probably seen that enough times now. Yeah, not that we didn't see that in Batman v Superman, but then we say, okay,
10-second clip in the very intro during the credits where
we still got it again.
The pearls,
we still got it again. Like, we get it every time. Anyway, we have, like, okay, yes, this is Batman, and then we move on and we're like, okay, so he's been Batman for, I think it's 15 years. He's supposed to have been Batman in Batman v Superman, and you're just going, okay, what happened to make him not the Batman that everyone knows? Oh, well, you're just not going to tell me. Well, thanks for that. I think there's an origin story question there that's valid. And I think that you could have gone through Batman v Superman and got away with it if you're then given, and I know you mentioned a minute ago about the Robin armor with the the whole presumably Jason Todd. But I mean, that doesn't really explain it, because sort of Alfred isn't going, hey, Bruce, calm down a bit, buddy. Which you'd expect him to be doing. No, this is just a thing he's been doing for a long time.
He's also not super old. Like Alfred would be really old at that point.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Alfred is really not that much older than
he looks like he could have been a butler. Yeah, like he's so young in that movie.
He's his older brother.
Like he looks like he's just a little bit older. Like hey, Bruce was born, so we picked up some 12-year-old to watch him, and now he's our butler because he didn't want to pay child support or something. He's got to earn his keep. I don't know what happened, but he didn't seem much older.
But yeah, I mean, I think that being aware of when something needs an explanation is the important factor in an origin story. Because no, I didn't need to see in Batman v Superman his mother being shot again. The pearls. What is it with sticking the gun, the pearls around the back of the semi-auto so that it breaks when the gun fires? Like, what is with that?
It was like an attempt to be artsy. It was like,
it would never happen. Like, it's just completely unrealistic. You're mugging someone. That's not the way you mug someone.
It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor.
I think Bruce has seen that enough. I think he's sick of those stories.
Yeah, I think what's funny is I think their character choices, like the types of characters that they have for these specific actors and this like specific like lineage of the storytelling was actually like good. Like the casting was good. I think the feeling that they wanted as a cinematic universe was good.
Yeah,
it definitely detaches them away from Marvel. But I just don't feel like they had it's like their direction and their writing kind of doesn't match. And it kind of throws people off, and you don't really get a sense of cohesion. like again, you get a lot of holes that you can poke. You get a lot of non-explanations. But then in like Justice League, like especially the Snyder cut, you get two origin stories. Really, you get the Flash, essentially, kind of like his origin story, and you get Cyborg. So it's like you kind of still are going to origin stories to introduce, I guess, familiarize other people, mainly maybe not comic book readers. But then it's like you're catering to the comic book readers on like a whole nother level. It's like it's kind of weird. It's like they're trying to do both, or they were trying to do both with these movies, and it's inconsistent. It's like you have to explain this person, but not this person, and so, it kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. The thing is that Cyborg, even the Flash, are much less well known than Batman and Superman, right? Like, I mean, the Flash, I'd like to think most people know who that is, right? Cyborg, probably less so.
I could understand Cyborg. I think that the Flash is somewhat straightforward. Like, even the deepest that Barry Allen goes, he's still a very straightforward person. He's still kind of a surface level person. You don't have the like super damaged psychology that like, you know, maybe that Batman has, you know, like the dark side. You don't really have that. Yeah, exactly. Cyborg for sure. Like you know, that whole hatred of your father, he turned you into a monster or something. Like that was an interesting story. I think that actually kept me engaged while I wasn't seeing Superman. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. But so that made sense. But it was like you said, if you leave out the origin stories of the other characters because you're relying on other movies maybe to tell the story, like I get why Marvel does that because they got 22 movies.
Well, you know what I mean? That was what I was just about to say, because the difference here is DC went, okay, we're having a brand new universe. We have Man of Steel, okay, which is, you know, it no matter what else I might say about it, it tells Superman's backstory. Let's just say nothing more than that. Not a fan, I'm afraid. For example, why doesn't he save Jonathan Kent? It makes no sense whatsoever. Save him. No reason why not.
He was fast enough. He could have done it, and no one would have known either.
Exactly.
He could have gone through the tornado. He could have stopped the tornado. Yeah. Like, so like, the other thing I was thinking of, ironically, like Hector, you were saying like the Cyborg things, like that story helped you like stay engaged. Ironically, that story was awesome. I wish it was its own movie after watching it before the Snyder cut. Like
that's what I was going to say. I mean, Marvel spent the time, right? That's the difference, and it actually comes nicely back to what we were talking with Austin about earlier. People don't want to spend the time, right? They're scared of spending the time to do it right. And what Marvel did is they went, okay, you know what? We're going to tell these individual stories about these characters. And I don't think they initially knew that it was going to go to the Avengers. The whole Nick Fury thing at the beginning was kind of a throwaway. They thought it'd be fun. You know, they'll do that thing.
You're up for the Marvel movies?
Yeah.
In 2008, I saw an entire timeline that went up to 2020. They planned it from the very beginning. Yeah, like
not from the very beginning.
Before the movie launched, I saw an entire time chart, and they only
before the Avengers movie launched, they did everything. Actually, I would bet that it was only really done up to the snap.
No. I mean, before Iron Man, they were planned all the way out to Age of Ultron. I saw all of it. Yeah, like before Iron Man was even in theaters, which was technically the first Avenger. Like that was the first.
First Avengers movie. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, and so of the beginning of, although technically the Hulk is supposed to be the same Hulk, but ignoring that, like
Hulk is not supposed to be the same Hulk. He's not. They redid the origin story. It's not actually watch the Incredible Hulk. It's not the same origin story. It is different. Hulk is not canon.
But anyways, yeah. So the MCU, the first of it, and before that movie even hit theaters, I saw a time frame back in 2008. It was 2008 that literally showed it all the way up to the Avengers movie, the Age of Ultron. And I think they had something like it was like the unknown Avengers for like the.
I think they had Infinity War planned before Joss Whedon left during Age of Ultron.
Yeah, like they had a time planned out way in advance.
And quite possibly back at that stage as well, is what I'm saying.
I was just going to say, I think the DC didn't plan at all. They're like, let's make a quick movie.
Let's make a Batman and Superman movie and make some money.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying, Cyborg could have carried his own movie. We could have done that. that could have been a movie that people would have enjoyed. You know, and it's kind of a shame that they just went, no, we're good.
I think it's interesting because like we kind of have the opposite. It's very funny because we have like the opposite trajectory with both Marvel and DC, right? So like DC kind of got into the show game, like, you know what I mean, like the having like a series before Marvel, and they could have used those the same way that Marvel's doing now to tell these gap stories and to build the fan base. And it's like they missed a lot of opportunities. And then even like, so like the Titans show, I actually thought that was a really good storytelling of the Titans. It was a little different. It's kind of off. It's a little more teen drama-y. Okay, fine. Like, you want to focus on the relationship building, that's fine. But like, that's not even connected into the same universe as like your big movies. So it's like everything DC does just feels somewhat detached from everything else. And I think that's what we're talking about here, is that Marvel has spent the time to make everything attached and have, you know, to
I mean,
the
even
comic book fans' satisfaction or not,
and all that stuff.
Yeah, DC.
They could still tie that in. Yeah, exactly. They could still tie in all the Netflix shows. Yeah, I'm just saying, like,
within Luke Cage, the bullet that could kill him was actually from the invasion.
Right. Yeah. I give it Chitauri, like that metal. Yeah, that metal. So yeah, it makes sense. Like, everything makes sense. They go out of their way to like say, okay, how can we like compromise and tell a little bit of this story, so they meet in the middle. But it's like, to me, I feel like DC is definitely not doing that.
Larger as a result, right?
Yeah.
You know, it feels like there's more stuff going on than you see on the screen. You can believe that you can believe that there is a Black Widow adventure that happened that we never knew about.
That's the perfect example.
So Wonder Woman 84 felt shoehorned in to me. Like really good. Like, don't get me wrong, I quite enjoyed the movie. Like, it was all right. It was pretty fun.
I haven't seen it.
Don't worry, no spoilers. But it was pretty fun. But you know, it felt very shoehorned in. It was like, oh, she was around in World War I, and then she's around in modern day, so we can fit something in the middle. It's cool. Let's do that. And it's kind of like, okay, like she was deliberately keeping a low profile all that time, but we're okay with this now. Like no wonder Lex Luthor has some footage of her. Like, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, like I said, everything feels detached from one another. It really doesn't feel like there is a greater goal or greater plan. Right. And now they've hit a stride. So now, maybe right now you can say, okay, like, everything that has been done previous, like, let's just use that as the foundation. And then let's just say everything henceforth is now extremely canon and extremely in a linear fashion, even though we have, like, I mean, let's just put it this way. So, like, each one of their superheroes seems like they have their own universe that they could, like, without the other characters in. Like, Superman has tons of villains.
Aquaman,
yeah,
Superman,
exactly. They have their own universes. The Green Lantern Corps, you know what I mean? Like, it's all over the place. So, like, their universe is very huge. So right now, to try and fit all those characters on screen together, like, though I thought the Snyder Cut was good, to me, it's like, you have to have a 4-hour movie. You have to have like huge cinematic budgets and things like that. And that, to me, doesn't feel sustainable. Like, the Marvel kind of universe has hit this point where they're like, okay, well, we can do these kinds of movies. We can do a big budget movie. We can do a series. We can do a small budget movie. And, like, we can plan out our finances so they all, you know, work well together. And, like, we can just plan this thing out really, really well. And I don't think DC has that. Like, maybe they're hitting their stride, but I don't think they've got it as down pat as, like, as Marvel, for sure.